Innovations. Welcome here to Cy Ridge, and we're going to showcase their journalism department today, and which is, featured by the Cy Ridge Rampage newspaper and the Charger yearbook. So, thanks everyone for joining us for our monthly press conference today. We're sort of putting a twist to what we've normally done in the past. We're giving you guys a couple of guests. We're going beyond just writing. We told you guys it was more than just writing with this network. We're going to give you guys the photographers, the ones behind the cameras, obviously behind all the larger lenses that you've seen. And again, just like we've always done, we're going to open the floor for questions, anything you guys want to ask, things they've seen and things they've gone through. Obviously, for any student or teacher who's not here, we're live as we always are, or you can go back and watch the video. And if you have any questions here or live, make sure you have the hashtag CFISDpresser, and we'll get all your questions asked and get answers for you. But I'd like to introduce Kendi Jennings to introduce our guest.
Okay, hi, I am Kendi Jennings, as he said, and I am editor-in-chief of the Charger yearbook. This is my 6th year in yearbook, actually. And yeah, so CRHS Press, which is Cy Ridge High School, is our newspaper, and then the Charger yearbook is obviously our yearbook. And so we're here today, and that's very exciting. I see a lot of familiar faces like Jersey Village because of our other field trips, things like that, like JV. And yeah, okay, so we're going to be talking to them, asking them questions and about their photography. And okay, so photography is very, very important to me and obviously everybody here because we're all in journalism. And I think it is very, very important to take pride in our photography because, like, as a photographer, we're more than just, as I get called, the girl on the sidelines or the picture girl, because that's always cool. And so our photography is very important because without photography, we wouldn't know a lot of things. Like recently, I know for Cy Ridge, we did a homework assignment, but it was assessment over civil rights photography, and it's like photography captures moments throughout history, and little do we know what we're doing right now is going to be history. So, and I'm very excited to hear from Karen Warren and Eric Christian Smith. I am also a sports photographer. I don't like taking portraits. So, so yeah, I'm super excited. And cool. Thank you.
And just to sort of bounce off Kennedy's point before we open the floor, I just came back from a trip to Washington, D.C., and like you mentioned, photos are part of history, and one of the museums we went to was the African American Museum. It's sort of the must-see that everybody wants to see, and they have tons of pictures telling history. So what you guys are taking pictures of for your school, your yearbook, your publications, it's part of history. And I'll let each one sort of talk about themselves in their career, but of course Karen Warren from the Houston Chronicle, one of my former colleagues, and Eric Christian Smith, who shoots for the Associated Press, shoots for pretty much anybody, but a lot of the Associated Press, but a lot of everybody. So, Karen.
Well, I'm Karen Warren. I have been with the Chronicle almost 21 years, so longer than most of you guys have been alive, and so are all of y'all. But anyway, I started out my career at the Austin American-Statesman about 30 years ago. Yeah, that's about right. And I've shot a bunch of Super Bowls. I've done 5 Super Bowls shooting, and then I've edited about 7 or 8. I can't remember now. 2 World Series, College World Series, Little League World Series. So I've done my trifecta. My favorite sport is baseball. So, but I do a lot of everything else. If anything you see in the paper is something I shoot. I do food photography. I do portraits. I do a little bit of everything. But like I said, my favorite thing in the world to shoot is baseball. And so this year I got to shoot the Astros, as they made their way through and to the World Series and championship, so woo! Pretty exciting. Yeah, it's so pretty exciting. But yeah, that's I'm in the perfect space that I could possibly be at the Houston Chronicle. They still actually spend some money. You can't say that about all newspapers. I still feel like we fill a need in the community, and I feel like we're relevant. So thank you guys for having us here.
And you're going to Florida, I don't know.
Oh yeah, and I'll be going to spring training.
And that'll be your what?
6 and 3.
What, better year? What?
19.
19th
My 19th spring training, so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Eric?
My name's Eric. I can't even come close to what she's done. I've been shooting freelance for probably about 10, 12 years, no, 11 years. Started with Houston Chronicle, then Getty Images to some other people, and then started shooting with the AP about 5 years ago, but pretty much almost exclusively for the AP for the last 2 years. And it's a lot of fun. Get to hang out with her a lot during baseball and football too. Astros games, Rockets games, all the Texans games, college games. The coolest thing I got to do last year was probably the ALCS against the Yankees. I got to shoot Game 6 and 7, and one of the pictures up there, the final out of Game 7. That was definitely the coolest thing I've ever gotten to shoot. I've not gotten to shoot any World Series or Super Bowls yet, so we'll see.
You'll get there.
We'll see. The main thing one thing I would absolutely love to shoot eventually is I would love to shoot the Masters. It's my favorite sporting event. It's not my favorite sport to shoot, but it's my favorite sporting event, and that would be that, and a World Series too would be very cool. That's pretty much it. I'm looking forward to baseball. Sorry, guys, gonna be here soon. You know?
And of course, before we open the floor, as you guys can see, some of the photos that they've taken, you know, Astros, other sports are up on the screen. But I guess we're gonna open the floor. So if you have a question, you want to raise your hand, let us know who you are, what school you're from, and get this thing going.
Oh, there's two. I'm sorry.
My question is directed to Eric. How did you decide that you wanted to be a freelance photographer?
I guess it's just that at the time it was when the market for jobs, I mean, in just in newspapers, was going down. I mean, can I bring everyone on? Okay. 12 years ago, there were 23 staff photographers in the Chronicle. Today, there's 11. So there's staff jobs are just so hard to get. So I just basically took whatever I could get, and that's what I decided to do. And the Chronicle was actually one of my first people I shot for back then. So.
Thank you. My question is for Karen. Why do you like shooting baseball so much? What makes baseball special?
Baseball, I started out with football, and I grew up with football. My dad taught me football, and anyway. But I didn't know anything about baseball until I moved to Houston and started. My first spring training, I didn't know all the players. I didn't know anything about the history of the sport, and therefore I didn't really appreciate what it was all about. I did shoot the Olympics in 1996, and I got to sit next to VJ Lovero from Sports Illustrated, and we were sitting at Fulton County Stadium, and I could hear all the excitement going on at the new stadium with all the track and field events going on. And I thought, I want to be over there, and he was like, no, you're over here, it's quiet, and he kind of taught me about baseball and just what to look for, and I think it's just more challenging to shoot baseball because it's one of those sports where you absolutely have to kind of know what you're looking at, and if you've got a batter who's a lefty, you kind of know maybe he's going to pull that way, or you know what I mean. And so to me it's just more thoughtful. Like, I have to keep my head in the game at all times, not only to keep from getting hit by a baseball and possibly dying, but just to also just be a friend of ours, actually the AP photographer who just recently retired, she got hit by a baseball. It was a foul ball hitter, and she ended up kind of getting gangrene under the skin, and she had to have and she had to have a skin graft. So I take it very seriously, and but I'm also out there to make good pictures, and so I take it very seriously.
We have this thing that when during the baseball season we shoot primarily what we call outside first. So in the well we'll have our computer set up because we're editing also, and so whenever a left-hander hitter would come up, because they pull towards our well, it's always lefty. That's the call. That's like, okay, there's a left-hander coming in.
Usually they have their heads down in their computers, and I'm like, okay, you guys you're going to get hit in the head if you don't get your head up. So
And we had a lot of close calls last season. A ton of foul balls. There was one night, there was like 6 or 7 that came to the well.
I mean, they come within a couple of inches of your head, and you could feel.
Remember Troy got hit?
Yeah.
Troy got hit in the shoulder.
And it's scary. You're shaking for about 10 minutes after that. You're like, oh my God, that was so close.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah. Yes.
Hey guys, just a friendly reminder, go ahead and say your name and what school you're from so we all sort of know who's here.
Mariela Vargas, Jersey Village High School. How difficult was it for you as a woman to break into professional sports photography?
Good question.
That's a good question. Well, I came in at a time where there weren't that many women. My first Super Bowl was the Cowboys-Bills in 1993. And I think I was one of like 3 women on the field out of like 300. Back then they had just 1 million photographers, and it was tough. I mean, you had to kind of sharpen your elbows and just be a little bit more, aggressive. I mean, I'm 5 foot. I used to be 5'2". I'm 5'1.5" now because I've shrunk. This is part of getting old, y'all. Just don't do it. Just take my advice. But yeah, no, you have to just kind of, sometimes it works good to, not be grumpy about it. Just, if somebody's willing to give you some space and some advice, listen to it. But if you sense that you're going to get run over by somebody, just have a presence about you that, you're not going to take any grief from anybody. You're there to do your job, and that's just the way it's going to be. No, it is intimidating, walking into a situation like that. I mean, I had never been to a Super Bowl. Oh my God, I've barely been to, football games. So, to walk into a venue like that and just try to do your best and not get run over.
There's on Instagram, was that account, Women's Sports Photography account that they talk to you, Elsa, right. And Elsa and others. That's a really cool account if y'all are on Instagram, which
so
I'm sure all you are.
It is a showcase of all women in sports photography. So it's actually a really good Instagram account.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Sydney. I'm from Sky Ridge, and my question is, my question is for Karen. What made you want to be a journalist?
I've always wanted to be a journalist. I worked at my high school newspaper on the yearbook, and I loved it. I loved. Well, I was really shy when I grew up. When I was younger, I grew up as an Army brat, so I was just kind of, in my own little shell. But working for the newspaper and being a photographer in high school, I had to go around and talk to people, and so that kind of helped me open up. And when I went to college, I was gonna be a writer. I wanted to, but I couldn't write a lead to save my life, and not on a timely basis anyway. I've learned since then how to write, but my pictures, I was getting A's in photography, and I was having fun. I was out talking to people, and I was just sort of, I enjoyed it. So that's how I got into it.
Sure.
I'm Tia. This question is to both of you. Which mentor throughout your career has been the most memorable to you, or has impacted your work the most?
Good.
Well, I mentioned VJ Libero. He was a Sports Illustrated photographer. He's since passed away. He had brain cancer, but he was absolutely the reason why I fell in love with baseball. I mean, he was so patient with me, and he wasn't going to let me be sitting there grumpy about shooting baseball. But VJ was an inspiration. My husband's a photographer too, and he inspires me as well. His name is Robert Seale, S-E-A-L-E, and he's got a website that's fantastic. So if you guys have a chance,
and an excellent blog too.
Yeah,
an outstanding blog.
Yeah, and so he's got actually his is more portraits, and so he's got lit portraits. But he used to work for a magazine called The Sporting News, and so he would also go to all these different sporting events and Super Bowls and the Masters and all sorts of stuff. And so, but he was one of my inspirations as well. But I would say those two were my most,
I would say that when I was in high school, and that's when I got into photography, I started shooting for the local newspaper, the Courier, when I was probably a junior in high school. And David Hopper was the photo editor, and he took me under his wing and taught me a lot. And then also, I was able to, when I was in college, I quote unquote interned there. for 2 summers. It actually wasn't even really the summer. It was actually every other weekend, or because I was shooting for the yearbook and the newspaper at St. Houston. And he taught me what it was about just being a professional, as like how to handle things, do this, don't do this. And then I'd say later, I still talk to him about once every 3 or 4 months. Now it's like there's just the people that I get to work with all the time that I'm around are so much better than I am that I'm always looking at things that they do, and that's what it's not like them saying something to me directly, just by observing. I'm going to use you as an example here. Baseball, I've learned more about shooting baseball from Karen without her saying anything to me, ever. It's just like looking at her take from a game or watching her approach through shooting, then through the editing process, and then keeping your head in the game of what's going on, because baseball is so fast. I mean, it's I learned a lot from her. And it just, all the people that I work with inspire me. Everybody does, whether it be you or David or Bob or Billy or Alex or anyone. That's who I get inspiration from on a daily basis. People that I follow online too. But I would say David Hopper absolutely, and then everyone that I deal with every day.
Aww, that's sweet.
I try.
I'm Kennedy Jones, and I go to Cy Ridge. I guess it's a question for both of you guys. Did you ever go through a phase while you were, I guess, in a college search, figuring out if photography would actually give you money, and did it matter?
That's actually a great question.
That is a great question.
That's a great question.
It's different now.
It is totally different. When I was going through school, it was a lot different. I mean, it was before you had internet and digital and all this, it was all manual focused, and and there were jobs. I mean, I had probably 5 different opportunities. I had internships that I was turning down internships. I was turning down jobs, and I got to choose sort of where I wanted to live. Nowadays, it's not that simple. And are you going to make money in photography? That depends on what you go into. I mean, there's all sorts of different classifications, I guess you would say. There's commercial photography, which is what my husband does now, which pays pretty well. I mean, editorial is not going to pay you as much. Now you have to keep in mind that your ratio of what you spend on your gear and what you make will determine, what you want to pursue.
You know what? I think that's a good point. If you have a staff job like Karen does, Karen gets her employer pays for this, so she's able to use whatever she wants.
They didn't used to, but nowadays they do, because these cameras, like these cameras here, are $6,500 a
brand
piece,
new, right?
Brand new. So that is a chunk of change. Okay, a brand new lens like this is about $13,000. Now, trust me, this is about 12 years old. This lens.
13 zeros.
13,000.
That's a lot.
Yeah, like a car. This is a Subaru right here. And a little lens like this is about $1,500 on top of the $6,500 camera. And I think it's about the same for Nikon. They may be a little bit cheaper, but nonetheless, I mean, and there are different there's consumer cameras that are a little bit cheaper that probably do the same thing.
Or you buy it used.
Or you can buy things that are used, exactly. You kind of have to be careful about that. But nonetheless, you have to determine, okay, what it is, how much, and do your homework. Meet people in that field. If you want to go into newspapers, talk to some newspaper photographers. If you want to go into the commercial end of it, Google somebody in your town that you've looked at their website and really like their stuff, and you want to learn. Offer to come in and help. So that's a good way to kind of determine whether or not you're going to be, is that something you really want to pursue or not. And again, this is a lot of money to spend, but you want to make money in return. So don't go into debt. But make sure that you've got an avenue of income.
And this is specifically if we're shooting sports or
this is not something that you would cart around if you were doing, like my husband doesn't have a lens like this. I think the longest lens he has is about a 300, which is, significantly less money. But he also, he spends money on lighting equipment and other things like that too. So there's an endless supply of money that you could spend on photography, just like anything else. But just know that you kind of need to do your research and decide what you really want to pursue and what you want to shoot. It has to excite you. You know, it has to be fun for you too, because it's a big investment.
It is a big investment.
Lots of hands. Okay, is this all about money? Okay, go ahead.
My name is Isabella. I'm from Cy Ridge, and this is for Karen, or both of you. How was your journey so far in the journalism field?
My journey? My journey's been great. I mean, there's been some bumps. You know, we go through little periods where, you know, like in 2009 we had a bunch of layoffs, and that was scary, I will tell you. I mean, as a senior staff photographer, one of them, I was fearful that I was going to lose my job. But, you know, those are scary times, but then you have really great times too. I mean, you have time, but it's fun. I get to go out and meet different people every single day, and that makes this community of Houston, that seems really big and intimidating, it's actually really not. To me, this is a small city, and it's because I get to go out and I meet different people, and I feel like that gives me a better understanding of, you know, trying to relate to everybody, and you know what I mean? To me, this is a great city to be in, and it's fun. I enjoy it.
My perspective, I've gotten to do things I never thought I would ever be able to do. As far as some events, I've met great people. I've gotten a lot more out of it than I ever thought that I would get out of it, I would say. And it's very rewarding, without doubt.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is Andrea, and I love professional baseball. Like last year, I spent I went to every single game that was home. So it took me forever to capture the actual ball. You know, it took me to probably right at the end of the last game, I got that picture.
Practice makes perfect.
And I was so happy. But I'm looking at the picture that you took. How do you what lens did you use, and at that moment how was your camera settings? Do you kind of remember?
Which picture are you talking
about? Altuve throwing the ball?
Yeah. He was
where it's right here?
This one where he's scissor kicking and he's
oh yeah,
like
okay, so he's levitating in the air. Well, that's actually, I shot that with this camera, one of these cameras, and it's a lens not quite as big as this, a 400. It's somewhere in there. No, it was the 2-4. It was the 2-4. It was because I was borrowing a 2-4 from Canon.
You didn't want to give it back either.
I did. I cried when I had to give that lens back. But yeah, basically, you know, I shoot at a higher shutter speed. And an ISO. So it's about 2500, I think, ISO at about 1600
That was
shutter.
right? That you were shooting at the 2.4.
It could have been higher than. But anyway, so the higher your shutter speed is, and the faster that you have your motor drive. Is how you get those pictures, because I will motor drive through something like that and have 12 frames, because this is 14 frames?
It's 12, I think.
12 frames. No, it's more than that. It's 14.
Okay.
So it's
Mine's 11.
It's either 14 or 16. And don't ask me what the megapixels is, because I don't know that. But it's a bigger file size than most. But anyway, it's a super fast, and I turned it on and oops. Actually, so that's about how fast. If I'm focusing on Altuve, I'll do one of those little bursts.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's almost like a movie. Yeah. But I mean, and you have to hope that you're in focus, because sometimes your focus will kind of shift a little bit. You're like, oh God, I hope I got that in focus.
That's what happens.
Yeah. So you're almost there. But honestly, practice, because you're actually in a really good place, because the digital will let you know right away whether you got it or not. I used to have to wait to go back to the office, and we called it souping our film, and then pulling it out of there and going, oh. Why am I even in this business? Oh my God, they're going to find out I'm a fraud. I mean, yeah. Oh my God, they're going to fire me. Dang.
Where do you usually stand, for the games, where were you usually at?
During the the World Series?
Yeah.
Or I was outside the first base side. So right outside the dugout, the Astros dugout is
Yeah.
here, and I'm right out here.
Right.
And then during the games in LA, I was actually in the dugout because that's where they had the
Do you think it's
photographers.
like, do you think it's better to be like inside the dugout or like outside?
I was getting blocked a lot by Altuve and company on the stairs. So there were times I couldn't see home plate, like during Game 6 and Game 7, because they were perched up there like they were birds on a fence, and I couldn't see. I was like, okay. So I'd text Brett because we had another photographer on the other side, and I was like, okay, I have no view of home. So, but I could get them coming into the dugout and screaming and hugging or that kind of thing. So it was kind of a trade-off at that point because we were trying to cover everything. So we were covered. It was just yeah. I prefer being a little bit further out so they don't stand in front of you.
My name's Jonathan. I go to Cy Ridge. My question is, what is some advice to give to like a young journalist that wants to travel and get their name out?
Travel doing what?
Well, I mean, like travel to all these events that go on.
Well, you kind of have to start small, to be honest. You have to. I mean, high school is I think Eric was going to try to make this point too. High school is a great place to get acquainted with those sports, get acquainted with the football game, know the game, learn baseball early. Don't wait like I did, because that's such a waste. But I mean, if you start out at your high school level and shoot good pictures because you can shoot a good picture
Of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And but you got to have practice first because you're not going to just be able to waltz into a Super Bowl or a World Series and go, here I am, because it is going to take practice. But you have the very best of all the worlds because you know all the kids, right? So you're not going to struggle at getting IDs if you have to ID and caption pictures for like your newspaper or your yearbook, and you're also going to have pretty good access, and you may not have the long lenses and stuff, but it's okay. Get your timing down. It's even if you had something along this line like a 70 to 200 or something like that, work that. And you're going to still be able to make pictures, okay? And it's more about learning the timing and kind of getting comfortable, knowing what to look out for and how to pay attention. And that's how I started out. I started out in high school shooting football. So it'll happen for you. You just have to just go for it. Yeah. And then as far as moving on, if you run into a professional photographer or somebody that you can start following them on Instagram or Twitter or something else, and just looking at their work, and like he said, he watches everybody else's work, and everybody kind of watches each other's work, and it's a great way to get to know, see what people see, and then you can kind of think, oh, how I wonder how they got that, and reach out to them and ask. I think most of us are pretty.
Photographer, the Houston, I'd say the Houston photo community, or just the photo community in general, is very tight.
They're
real
very
tight,
open.
and
we know everybody,
yeah.
And we know people all over the world, and so it's like, yeah, we're a pretty friendly group. So just approach us.
Let's go way in the back.
Yeah, we're going to spread the wealth.
Hi, I'm Sean Spencer. I'm from Jersey Blues. And I just have to ask, what are some of the advantages and difficulties of working freelance?
Like I said earlier, I'm one of the first I don't know if okay, you have to buy all your own stuff. Okay, all this is out of my pocket every day.
That would be disadvantage.
Right, that'd be a disadvantage. I happen to be lucky that, I won't call David my boss, but the guy that gives me my assignment editor, who's if I ever need anything from him, if I want to borrow a camera or a lens or whatever, I can get it. But the main thing is the cost of the gear, and then you got to buy your computer, and you've got to buy the software, and you have to drive there, and you don't get to write. No one's reimbursing you for anything. So freelancing is it's not an easy gig at all. I'm one of the lucky ones. I mean, I absolutely will say that I'm absolutely one of the lucky ones in this business. that I pretty much get to do what I want. I get a really solid amount of work that I can survive and make a living. But that's the main thing, is the cost of getting into this. As a sports photographer, this is, you go back what you were saying a while ago. All this is used, by the way. But all this used. So that was $1,200. That was $2,500. That was $3,000. That's a new camera. That was $5,600. That's $20,000 worth of gear. That's a lot of money. I'll give you another example. Last summer, when we're shooting baseball, I had which I'll never do again, had my camera leaning up against the well, and I stepped back and hit the monopod, and the camera goes right on his back, 4 feet. Completely smashed the viewfinder, and the mirror flies out. Luckily, the lens wasn't damaged because it landed straight on its back. Well, now what do? I can't go to the office and get another camera. And now I had to send that in at my own expense, have Nikon fix it at my own expense, and ship it back to me at my own expense. That was a $600 screw up on my part. And then I sent this one in.
So that's several assignments, actually.
Oh, that's 3 assignments. That's basically 3 assignments. Yeah. So that then I sent my 2.4 in because I had never sent it in before to have it cleaned. Turns out that accident I had last summer I didn't even notice it, had bent the mount on where it mounts to the camera. They said that was $325 plus $250 to ship it there and back. So I'm lucky that I get enough work where I can afford to do it, but it's hard. And I'm not trying to discourage you, but I'm saying that's something you have to be aware of. And whatever you do, just if you can avoid ever going into debt to do it, 'cause that's what usually sinks almost everybody. They go into debt, they think they're going to make the money, and they don't make the money, and then they get out of it.
I was gonna say, yeah, don't try to avoid that. But also you're going to be paying for your insurance on
yes.
and your car, your gas, and it's like
and your taxes.
Rents and taxes, and then so it's not a cheap thing to think about. But yeah, it's like I said, it's something to consider when you're going into whatever field you decide to, because
I wish Robert was here, because
I know editorial.
He wrote an entire. Her husband wrote an entire piece on his blog about how to make it as a freelance photographer, and he just goes down the whole thing. A lot of what I said was basically borrowed from what Robert wrote. Is that this is going to cost you this, it's going to cost you this, it's going to cost you this. And next thing you know, you're like, it's a lot of money.
We're not trying to discourage you guys, but it's just
reality.
It's just the reality of it. But then if you get in like as I am with a staff job, it's different.
Do you know where it gets used? As where do you get used equipment?
There's a website called sportshooter.com. There's another one called fredmiranda.com. Fred Miranda there's a lot more stuff on there. It's just a more browsed website, as you say. Fred Miranda would be the best one, I think. There's a lot out there, but those are the two that I go to: fredmiranda.com and sportshooter.com.
Okay, last one.
Okay.
And do you have any tips for freelance, working freelance? Any tips?
Let's see. I just started out and then just networked and met people, and then try to be very nice to people. And if you're nice to people and you get along with people, these people will always help you out. You'll like Karen and I were saying earlier, it's a very tight-knit community, and everyone looks out for one another. And if you ever need something, they will help you.
Well, yeah, and if you're a bad seed or somebody that kind of well, yeah, it makes it really difficult. But if you're a good citizen and everybody loves you, then they are going to go out of their way. Like if I get a call for I'll get calls all the time. Hey, do you freelance, Karen? And I don't, because I feel like, okay, I'm lucky enough, I'm good. I'm gonna send that assignment to somebody else. Well, I'll give them Eric's name, or a couple of other people that I think are good citizens that are not gonna not sully your reputation or anything. So I spread the wealth a lot.
And I do that too. Whenever someone will call me about something and I might have something already assigned, I'll have people in mind that also freelance, and I'll think, first thing I'm going to think of is, can they do it, and are they going to do a good job, and then I'll give them names, and then it spreads the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I guess it's kind of remote from well, it is remote from. So as a sports photographer, I'm on the sidelines as well, and I've experienced a few scary moments, but obviously not as scary as yours. I've had a ref hit me, that's about it. But I was just wondering, what were your scariest moments and how far do you actually get? Like, I guess, how far do you push it to get the picture?
Well, you can only push it so far. If you're on the sideline, they've got hashtags, or not hashtags, but those little hash marks on the, and you're supposed to stay behind those. I mean, I see a lot of people kind of inching up, right, and you know, I think it's best for everybody to stay back because then everybody can kind of get a shot at the action.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got somebody standing in front of you,
You're blocking everybody.
You're blocking everybody for 20 yards or whatever. If you're on a football field, if you're at a baseball game, you're stuck because you can't walk out on the warning track. You can between innings, but not during a game. So where you're at is where you're at. Basketball is sort of the same way. You're on the baseline there, and that's where you're going to stay. Soccer, I guess, sort of the same thing. So it's but as far as like dangerous stuff, the baseball is definitely one up there as far as foul balls can just go flying, and it's just keep your eye on that. But for football, sometimes it's not just the where the ball is going to. Sometimes you've got players coming around still battling each other, and I've been blindsided a couple of times. I had a friend of mine, Alan Reed, he was a Channel 2 photographer. He got hit on the sideline of a basketball game, a Rockets game, and it broke his neck. Because they fell on him. He was a TV guy, so he was kind of he was over here shooting stuff, going up to the basket, and they were over here tussling and came over and fell on him, and so broke his neck. But yeah, so stuff like that can happen, and things are certainly you get some close calls, but.
Did he walk again? Did he walk?
Yeah, he's still shooting now. He was in a neck brace for about 6 months. Yeah. So and you don't want to be disabled in this business because I've got 3 bulging discs in my back, so I have to be really careful. But I don't want to be disabled. I want to be able to do this because I love it. It's fun, and anyway.
Oh wow.
Well, I was going to say that. Baseball, where you're talking about as far as the danger, basketball, what was that, Clint Capella stepped on my foot one night about a month ago, and God, that hurt. I was like, he did gain 25 pounds in the offseason. But he did his best to avoid me, because he went over me like, I'm not very tall anyway, but so he goes over me like this, but then I went, oh, I was so sore the next morning.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
Okay. When you travel to take pictures, what do you take with you equipment-wise? Like, have to take with you, absolutely every time.
You mean here? Everything. God, I'd say everything I brought with me, right?
When you travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do a lot more travel than I do, So.
Yeah. I take my long lens. If I'm going to like a baseball game, I'll take my long lens. I've got my 2 other cameras. All my various lenses and things. I carry rain gear in case you have to be outside in rain. Extra set of clothes, just in case you get wet. It's just I try to keep it simple, and sometimes that's kind of bit me in the rear. So take what you think you're gonna need. Okay, you haven't had a question?
Okay. So, I'm Mariana, I'm from University, and a lot of my peers actually like shooting in auto, but I feel like I don't like it because it's failed me so many times, and I prefer to shoot in manual. Like, you prefer manual too?
Oh,
absolutely.
That's all we shoot in.
And I can tell you an exception, or a couple exceptions. You can shoot in auto if you're using auto, where you'll have the shutter speed set up at the shutter speed you want, but that's not right.
That's if you're in
I'm sorry, the other way around.
Yeah.
Where you'll set the aperture, but you set the ISO high enough so that basically what I'm trying to say is if you're shooting football, like here's a great example, Kyle Field, okay, in an afternoon game, the shadow, I should say, from the alumni side, as the game's progressing, the shadow goes like this over across the field, like this. And so one side, where they're in the daylight, it's 2500th of a second at 2.8 at 400, but as soon as they go into the shaded area, it's 2500th of a second at 2.8 at 3200. So it's 8:16. It's 3 stops or even 4 stops underexposed.
Yeah.
So I will, in a situation like that, I'll set the ISO up high enough and leave it wide open at 2.8, knowing that when they come over here into the shaded part, I'll have enough shutter to stop any action. That would be a good
AV
example.
setting?
Yes, that's it.
AV,
Right.
it's the AV setting if you've got that on your camera. Yeah, so that's the absolute only time. Every time, everything else, I mean, even if I'm shooting portraits with lights and stuff, I'm shooting manual. So
You're in total control.
Yeah.
The camera's not making the decision for you. You're making the decision. All you're telling the camera what you want to do. Instead of the other way around.
And again, if you're just learning all this stuff, I mean, there's it's easier now that the digital, because you can see right away if something's going to work or not, if you've got enough, focal length and or not focal length, but depth of field, and to get what the kind of picture that you're looking for and what you want. Because sometimes you see something and it's got a certain light on it, and you just feel like you can't get it. Just keep trying until you get it, because you'll get it.
I can promise you that
and then you'll go, well, oh my gosh, okay, and then next time you'll remember, and it will be like, okay, I've done that. I've got that. Because it's, a lot of times I walk into something and I'll just go, I don't even really take a reading or anything. I just sort of know after this longer period of time what settings to be at for certain things, and it'll come to you. It's just a matter of keep doing it. It's just a repetition. It will make your, if you know that something works, you'll know right away. Go to it.
Like we both know that Minute Maid Park in a Wednesday night game, it's going to be 1600 at 2.8 at 2500.
Right, but if they come if they start celebrating and come into the dugout, well, you have to open
then
that. You have to change your ISO a little bit, and then otherwise it gets too dark in the dugout. So we know this. So it's kind of a muscle. What's it called? Muscle memory. So my finger just goes, whoop, and then it's.
Sunday afternoon game. That's at Texans noon game. That's without it's a bright sunny day because a lot of that light is coming through the glass. It's 2000 a second at 2.8 at 1600 almost every time, and we know that just because we've done it. Because you're when the camera's manual, you're in total control. You can make it look however you want it to look, instead of relying on a camera that could read something that's dark on the meter, and then it'll really underexpose everything else because it's looking at something dark, or it can be looking at something bright. Am I getting that right?
Right. Well, and what I used to do is take a reading off the grass on the field. I know lately though the grass fields, high school fields are turf, and so sometimes they look a little shiny. So those they can kind of throw off your exposures a little bit, but just kind of play with it. I mean, it's just pixels. It's not like you're wasting film like we used to back in the old days. So I mean, I think it's a lot easier now than it used to be. So just play with it, experiment. It's okay. It's okay to fail too. You'll learn from it. Okay. Okay. You haven't had a. I'm going for
you're good. Okay.
Kirby Niermeyer, Senator High School. When you're shooting, what kind of moments are you looking for exactly?
The best moments. The peak action. The guys up on the, jumping up, feet off the ground. I call the pictures that are action pictures that the guys are you can still see their feet on the ground. That's rooted. That means they've grown roots. It's kind of stagnant.
That's good.
Yeah, and so if they're up in the air and jumping and turf flying and the ball's in there, then that to me is like peak action. You're given the reader actually, or the people who are looking at your Instagram or anybody else, something that they probably didn't see on TV, even if they saw that play that just happened, and you've got this picture of, like there, George Springer off the, levitating off the ground and going for the ball, and like that. That's peak. He's reaching for the home plate. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something interesting, something that's in focus and tells a story of the game too. Hopefully.
We have a thing that pictures that I love are jubilation pictures where everyone's celebrating. We have a thing called Tears and Cheers, where you got like the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat, where you got people that have lost the game that are all like this, and then all these World Series pictures that you have of them celebrating and stuff like that. Those are the greatest moments. There's you'll get one that's like a wonderful jubilation picture, and you love it, and then all you want to do is get the one that's the next game or 3 months down the road, whenever, you're trying to always top it. You're always trying to get something that's better than the last really good jubilation picture or a agony defeat picture, or as we call it, like I was saying, tears and cheers. Those are the best for me. That's what I love to do, for sure.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm Tia with RH. This question is directed to Ms. Karen. Out of all the events you've covered, like the Atlanta Olympic and the Super Bowl, which one is your favorite?
World Series, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Astros World Series.
There you go, yes.
But Karen said that you told me that when we were talking at the Texas game that day. I asked you. I said, was that the pinnacle, or was that the best thing that you've done in your career?
I mean, it's stressful when you're shooting it too, because you don't want to screw up, and you don't want to miss deadline, and you don't, but it, yeah, it's fun. I mean, I know these guys. I'm excited for them. I'm excited because I've been covering them for 20 years, and it's been not that much fun all the time. So yeah, and I mean, so I mean, after it's said and done, I mean, I wanted to sleep for like 2 weeks straight, but it was fun.
Was it what you call it, the highlight?
It was a highlight. It was
Okay.
a highlight, yeah, for sure. Okay, you haven't had your hand came up, and you guys have asked questions, so bear with us. Let's get somebody who hasn't asked.
I'm Zoe from Ridge. Have you taken any pictures internationally or outside of the country before?
No, just on vacations, but never. They haven't sent me to
The Olympics.
Well, I have been to the Olympics, but it was here. It was
right.
local, but it was yeah. I haven't really. There's not been a whole lot of money for that, to be honest. If they can get it off of the AP wire, they'll do it. Or Getty. Let's see. Okay, you've been asking questions, you guys. All right.
This is for Karen. How was your experience with shooting with the Astros so far?
This year?
Yes.
This year's been great. Yeah, the guys have been loose. They've been fun. Happy-go-lucky. It hasn't always been like that. I mean, we've had people like Jeff Kent on the team. Which, just Google him, Jeff Kent. Yeah, and no, but this year has been great because the guys that are on the team right now, Carlos Correa and Altuve and Springer, they're all just so much fun and fun to shoot, and
yeah, they make great pictures.
They make great pictures, yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is for Eric. Why did you choose to do freelance and why did you?
I chose to do it out of necessity because I had to, because the staff jobs aren't. I'll be honest with you. If the AP ever offered me the gig, I'd probably do it. Just
because you get benefits.
Right, you get the benefits and everything else.
He'll get new gear.
Right, I had to go back to that, to the Canon stuff, but. But no, out of necessity, the staff jobs just aren't out really. They're there, but I like the freedom. I'll be able to do it, do whatever I want. So.
And I have not had to freelance. I've been lucky enough to. I've been at Austin as a staffer, St. Louis briefly as a staffer, and then as soon as I got to get out of St. Louis, I moved to Texas. I was like, yeah. So I mean, I've been really lucky. I mean, it pays benefits. My husband's on my benefits, so I mean, I know you guys don't know about benefits yet, but you're going to need health benefits one of these days, and so I mean, and I get a variety of assignments, and I have my gear. I have a company car that will go away anytime now, but anyway, but I feel like I'm so lucky. You guys have no idea how blessed I am. I mean, I feel it every day. I'm so happy and to get to do this, and I yeah, I'm lucky.
Okay, my question is for Eric. What has been your favorite assignment to go on?
Single? Like I'd have to be Game 7, the LCS, I think. That was probably the coolest one for sure. I mean, working with three other people.
You were Game 5?
I was not at Game 5.
Oh.
No, I was at 1 and 2 of the Red Sox, and 6 and 7 of the Yankees. And that was probably the coolest thing that I got to do, as far as like with the responsibility of being where I was. And I'm working with 2 other photographers plus an editor in the back, and they're all 3 people that I have an enormous amount of respect for and admire. So that was pretty cool. So that would be for me.
Okay. What do you mean by like editor in the back? Like so like as you're shooting, like they're editing like every single picture you're taking or deleting. Like
Or I can show you. Karen has one of these too. Right here on the side, you can plug in a cord into here, and you plug in the FTP, right? Into here program, and what it does, what we would do is say that between, like, just use the baseball as an example, between innings will look like this on the back, and we're scrolling through the pictures, and we'll just go hit it twice, and what it does is it's sending the picture to the editor in the photo room at Minute Maid.
Via Ethernet. So
right, through the Ethernet, correct. And then the editor takes it right to the caption, edits the pictures, all we had to do was shoot, which was pretty cool.
But that's just for the bigger events.
Correct.
During a regular game, it's just us and our computer, and then we're plugging away at it. But yeah, that's for big events that they have, the editors in the back.
I had a requested question from one of our guys on staff. How many pictures do you guys take at an event? Say like an Astros playoff game. How many pictures do you guys take from start to finish?
Thousands. I mean, literally thousands. I think I had, I downloaded 2 of my cards from, the parade pictures that I had. I think I had, I filled up 2 16-gig cards. And
that's a lot.
I was sitting there like, oh my gosh. But yeah, you just motor drive some stuff that you can get by without that much. But a Texans game is probably like 2,000 frames.
Yeah.
And then and out of that, like a routine game, I think I turn in about 50 actual photos from a Texans game. An Astros game might be 40 to 50 sometimes. It depends. And I'm doing some of that too. It may not be stuff that I know they're going to use for the daily paper, but for file down the road. Like if there's,
plus the galleries online.
Yeah, plus the galleries. We like to have a lot of pictures so people can click through there and they like that.
I was at a Texans game because I had to go out and shoot fans in the parking lot beforehand. Then I had to shoot the warm-ups. I feel sorry for Eric when it's David and I shooting because we hammer so much. I'd probably every single frame, including blanks, probably 2,500 frames on 3 cameras in a single Texans game. So it's not hard. I'm a light shooter. God, okay, because Eric would always write me and go, God, you and David, y'all hammer everything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I read on your bio that you went to University of Texas, and she knows you too, that's why she just whispered behind me. Okay, and I've been on the college tours, and I've learned that they have the best journalism department.
Pretty good.
They have one of the best, right? I think what's the one in Denton?
That's North Texas.
Yeah, I think they're actually kind of rivaling UT right now, just as far as journalism.
Yeah.
But I would check them both out, vet them very well before you go that route. But University of Missouri is supposed to be one of the best journalism. Yeah. I know it is.
It's real good.
They turn out an astounding number of journalists and photographers, and it's actually a really creative town. So if you're really looking for journalism, you might expand your search a little bit. But
Missouri gonna be on state tuition.
Well, that's true, but you might get a scholarship. Who knows, right? Yeah. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm from Cyber Newspaper, and my question is for Karen. So back before you started working, you mentioned internships and that you turned them down. Do you ever regret turning some of them down?
Well, no, because I went with the ones that I actually kind of had my choice. Which like I said, it doesn't happen these days. It does not happen. And I look back on it, and I wish I had taken the one that I took one in Idaho because I was trying to follow John Moore, because he was sort of like
I'm around.
Yeah, he was one of my colleagues in college, and anyway, he kind of did this certain route, and he was so successful, and I thought, well, I'm going to follow his route, and so I ended up in Idaho at the Idaho Statesman instead of, it was another place in Ithaca that I could have gone to, and that was more of a photo-driven paper. They had beautiful work, and I kind of regret not doing that, but at the same time, I mean, I had my own experiences in Idaho, and but I did Colorado's. Did Greeley, Colorado, Idaho Statesman, and then Colorado Springs Gazette-Telegraph, and then I ended up with a job in Austin right after that. So, I mean, I counted myself really lucky. That was the time where they were still hiring, and it was, you know, it was. I mean, I don't even think the Chronicle has some internships. It's mostly for writers. We end up hiring some from U of H, and we do others that'll come in from. It's rare that we actually pay for photo interns these days, but it's occasionally we'll come up with some money and you know we'll get a photo intern for the summer. So, but it used to be that every summer the Chronicle would have at least 1 or 2 photo interns, and you know tons of writing internships. So that's kind of faded a little bit, but we do trade credit for work occasionally. But that kind of varies. Mm-hmm.
From the end of an event until when you have to turn in your photos and your captions, about how long is your deadline?
Well, we're actually, if it's a regular season game, and I'm turning out, if it's a baseball game, I'm turning out stuff as we go. Like between, you know, innings, I'll you know, slam out 2 or 3 pictures, and because our deadlines are incredibly early these days, and you know, 9:15 might be our first deadline for our first edition, and then our last edition could be 10:15. So yeah, I'm just trying to get you know, if I get a picture that I think is pretty good, and I think, oh hey, you might want to swap this out, I'll send a note to the sports department and say you might want to, you know, look at this one, and especially if it's a game telling photo and it's kind of coming in a little bit late.
Shooting for the AP, during baseball, same thing with Karen did, and same thing that another colleague, Bob Levy at Getty, was we're filing as the game's going on. So I mean, you know, if it's a regular season game, there's nothing much happened at the end. You know, we're packing our stuff up in 10 minutes at the end of the game. We've already filed pictures throughout the game.
But if you get a dunk like that, well, that'll take you an extra 15 minutes.
Yeah, I gotta go there and get the card out.
Right.
Now during the Rockets games, usually with about maybe 3 minutes into the second period, I'll get off the court, go to the back, and start filing pictures. And then at the end, it's like you're just looking for, if you got a great moment, then that one goes for get it out, and then you file your regular stuff. In football, I haven't edited a football picture in 3 years.
That's nice for you.
Yeah, so yeah.
This is to Karen. What are the benefits like for working at the Houston Chronicle or any like major newspaper organization? And as you were saying earlier, you know, they've been letting a lot of people off. Have the benefits gotten any better since there's not that many people?
Well, it's just like everything else. You know, the benefits are more costly nowadays. I mean, you know, I feel like I'm giving more money to away than I'm taking home, but I'm still, you know, you know, again, the benefits are, it depends on what their plan is for that year, you know, as far as if it's, you know, Blue Cross Blue Shield that year. Sometimes they kind of flopped around, but generally it's okay, and you know, they've got a good plan. They've got a 401k and all of that stuff. But you know, the other benefits are like you know, you get gear. They may make you wait 12 years between getting better gear. I mean, when I got these new cameras, I was elated because I had 6 or 7-year-old cameras that were just they weren't even decent enough to hammer a nail with, you know, much less take a picture of. But anyway, generally, if everything's going well and they're making money, then everything's good.
Okay, like with all press conferences, we're getting close to time, so we're gonna have one more question. If you guys have any follow-ups, we'll have some one-on-ones if you guys have time to stay.
Some breakout sessions.
Some breakout sessions. But got time for one more if anyone has a final question?
Yeah. Okay. How do you handle like life and work?
It's not much of the life part. I will say that it's cost me a couple of relationships because, you know, I'm just being honest. I mean, you know, well, you're shooting baseball again tonight? Yes, for the 9th night in a row. It can definitely affect your personal life. I'll say that. But I love it, so, yeah.
Well, I have a husband that's a photographer, and so he's sort of is a little bit more understanding. And we have cats, so he gets tasked with taking. He has to, clean the litter box. So that's a little bit much, but.
Did you ever retire and become like the paparazzi?
That's like shooting weddings. That's like really stressful. I've actually done that one time. I went to California to shoot Joanne Herring. She's a local, and she did Charlie Wilson's War. Or her story was Charlie Wilson's War. Do you remember that movie? And so I had to act like a paparazzi on and the red carpet and all that stuff. And those guys are mean. They're just like elbows, and they're kind of just aggressive. It's like an East Coast, but it's a West Coast kind of attitude. So no thanks.
All right, everyone, just remember to call our guests here. Thank you guys, and again, thank you all the students and advisors for coming out. Thank you, Cyrus, for hosting. Our video will be posted here shortly when our stream ends. Thank you guys for coming. Our next press conference, February 28th, Cy will be hosting. Our guest is to be announced, so watch out for that tease. We'll get that out to you guys sooner than later. And Dominique Escobar, you have a gift for our panelists. Frequent gifts.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, you guys had really good questions, really honestly.
A lot of good questions, guys. And then we're going to have our group photo. So everyone up to the front. Photographers.